As an American expat in Spain, there are lots of little instances and call them microaggressions that happen throughout the day. One that happened very recently really stuck with me, and I thought it was an important lesson for myself, but also for anyone that's thinking about moving abroad or wanting to know actually what it's like and what actually happens. So I was at the grocery store with my wife and my son, and before we went in, my wife had to use the bathroom. So she gave me the baby bag, the baby, and I was just chilling. So I was holding my 13-month-old, just pointing at lights and colorful things in the sky to get his attention. And I noticed two women in their late 40s, mid 50s staring at me. And normally when you get these stares, you wait for that smile to come afterwards. That smile that says, hey, I see you being a dad, that's cute, good job. But these stares didn't turn into that. They had something behind them. They felt a little bit nasty. Normally I brush them off, but I stared back. I gave them those eyebrows like, do you have a problem? They turned to each other and that's it. My wife came out of the bathroom, I didn't say anything, and we started shopping. Now you would think I would already be used to this. I lived in Germany for 5 years before moving to Spain, so I know what it's like to be the expat, especially the Black American living in Europe. There's this concept floating around creator circles called Cringe Mountain, and the idea is that as soon as you start creating content, at the beginning it's going to be very awkward, very painful, and quite embarrassing. But the idea is that if you continue, if you keep at it, not only will you get better and improve, but eventually you will reach the peak and enter the land of cool. I came across this idea soon after the grocery store incident, and it helped me give a name to what I've been feeling as an expat. Because what I realized is that moment and all the other moments that happen that are very similar, they're not bugs, they're not things that aren't supposed to happen or that we're supposed to avoid, they're features. They are a feature of what we are doing as expats trying to make a new place our home. It's part of the climb, it's part of the ascent, and it's part of the journey. And like most painful things, the only way out is through. And the goal here is not some level of approval or a lack of being judged by locals, but it's a feeling of being home that really only you yourself can define or actually experience. So today I want to talk about what that climb actually looks like and all the layers involved. Now, the first thing that happens before your journey ever begins is you have naysayers. These are the people that are being negative or slowing you down or saying that you shouldn't actually make the move. And in this situation, the naysayers are not these women in their 50s at the grocery store staring at you. The biggest naysayer is the system that you come from. As an American living in the US, working a salary job, everything was taken care of for me. HR would handle my onboarding, my taxes, my benefits, my health care. Everything would just get wired to my Bank of America account that I've had since I was 15 years old. I never had to worry about visas, residencies. Everything was handled, didn't have to think about anything. The idea of stepping out of this system is enough to make most people stop before they even get started. Visa, residencies, all these things that you have to handle, it's pretty daunting. It feels like there's a wall of bureaucracy that's designed to keep you in the system that you come from. And the reality is that this naysayer, the bureaucracy system that you come from, it's not a problem that disappears as soon as you get started. It never disappears. It follows you all the time. You don't beat it once you get your visa or your residency. There's always going to be something that you have to renew, that you have to figure out in order to stay legal. You kind of learn to live with it humming in the background as you go about your day and trying to enjoy your new life. The second aspect that you have to deal with is the language. Recently, my wife and I were at the hospital, and the nurse and my wife, who is Spanish, were having a very spirited, great conversation. They were speaking at a normal speed that adults speak at, and I was being the good American husband, nodding, listening hard, trying to pick up words here and there. And all of a sudden, after my wife had given all the information that she needed, the nurse turned to me. And what did she ask? She simply asked my name. For some reason, I froze. A few seconds before, my wife gave her her name, and she spelled it out because it is a unique name, so it's not super obvious. So since she spelled her name out, I decided to try spelling my name out. Now, if you know Spanish, you probably know the words and are able to speak basic things. But if you try to spell something as an American, you are guaranteed going to feel very stupid. At least I did. Spelling is a whole different game than actually speaking. I was mixing up my oohs and ahs and ohs, and I felt like a toddler. I felt so dumb that I couldn't even give this nurse my name. So yeah, this was painful and I felt like an ass, and the reality is that situations like these happen all the time. Even if you have a grasp of the language, for some reason, it's very easy to freeze in these moments when you actually need it. There are so many moments throughout the day where you feel just kind of dumb. It's quite humbling. And since this is part of Cringe Mountain as an expat, there is no way around it. There are no shortcuts. You have to be willing to feel like an idiot sometimes so that you eventually get comfortable and work that muscle in your mind so that you don't freeze, and that in these situations you can actually use what you know. Most expats who move don't actually go through those cringe moments enough to get through the other side. Instead, what most of us do is we find these English-speaking cafes and only find this international community where we can use English as a crutch. And so really, we never actually integrate or use the language that we said we were excited to learn and make part of our lives. You can get by on English, but that isn't climbing. That isn't part of the ascent that we're trying to make. Another reality is the locals, and where bureaucracy is this naysayer that kind of creeps along, another one is the locals who are gonna always look at you a certain way. Because look, the reality is that as an expat, our existence, our presence is not neutral. The rents are increasing because people like us have moved in. The community, the neighborhood is changing because international people have come in, bought places up, and the core of what this place or what this city has always been is changing. And for most people, most locals, most residents, especially the older crowd, they aren't a fan. You are part of a pattern that started before you and will happen after you, and the locals know that. So you can't really take these things personal, but you also can't ignore them or pretend that they don't exist. The only way through this is to accept that you are a foreigner. It's not a temporary status that goes away once you learn the language. It's a permanent status. You are always going to be a foreigner, even if you become a non-native local, which is the goal. If you are going to move into a place and integrate your family and your life, you will always be from somewhere else, and the locals will most likely make you aware of it. And that's fine. It is what it is, but you can't get your panties in a bunch if they're going to look at you a little bit longer than you might be comfortable with. Another part of the climb of Expat Cringe Mountain is working on yourself. When I was younger and I started traveling, the big idea was that I wanted to see the world, wanted to experience new things. But one of the secondary benefits that I felt and probably didn't actually say out loud is that I was looking to run away from my responsibilities. I wanted to skirt the problems that I had back in my home country. Unsurprisingly, this didn't work. The problems followed me. And the same is true now if you are going to look for a country to solve your problems. If you had a horrible routine back in the US, you can also have a horrible routine in your new home in Europe. If you have a bad relationship with someone in your family, or you eat like crap all the time in the US, you can do those same things in Europe. The country, the location, the destination is not going to fix those for you. The best thing that I've done as an expat, as a father living in Spain, is actually to work on myself and to be honest about the things that I'm dealing with. I find that once you focus on working on yourself and your family, then things like integration, community, feeling more local, they start to happen naturally because you have the space and you are actually ready to experience and accept these things. Now, looking back at that grocery store situation, I'm not sure why I reacted that way, but as I continue my climb, the ascent of Expat Cringe Mountain, I realized something. There is no peak. There's no land of cool on the other side. There's no end point to this life that I chose. It's not like you go through enough crap and learn the language where all of a sudden you walk around and the locals look at you, give you a thumbs up and say, yes, welcome, I'm so happy you're here. That's never going to be the reality. Climb won't stop because you reach a destination. The climb will only stop if you fail to recognize that you're actually climbing. So what's on the other side of Cringe Mountain is not the land of cool, it's just this feeling of being home, of feeling comfortable in the place that you're in the place that you've chosen to raise your family and to start a life. And this isn't because the locals finally accepted you, it's because you realized that you don't actually need their acceptance. The cringe moments will still happen, the embarrassing, shameful moments will still happen, but you need them to. So yeah, be better than me. Don't let those old ladies at the grocery store get under your skin too much. Just look at them, smile, and keep climbing.